Help support Friendo Club by going to patreon.com/Stephen Larson or clicking join at youtube.com/Stephen Larson. Access to bonus episodes, question threads for the Going In Raw podcast, and entry to our monthly wrestling predictions challenges. Join the Friendo Club today. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw. On today's episode, we're going to be answering a bunch of your questions. We also have stories about CM Punk canceling a show on Collision. Wait, you said that sort of weird.
Segment.
A segment. Yeah.
Segment.
I mean, it was kind of a little mini
It was a
show.
self-contained program, yes.
Yeah. Also, a lot more other. Hey, we're hearing that Punk Daily theme today, believe.
Are we going to do the Punk Daily thing between each of these segments? There's 3 news stories, each involving Punk.
Hadn't even thought about that. Yes, we are. But
Go ahead and do it.
But first, you want to know?
This is Punk news, isn't it?
This is definitely Punk news. We're going to watch some CM Punk news today. Yes, we are. We're going to do some CM Punk news today. We're about to.
It's worse every time, I swear.
It gets better every time. Thanks to the Rob Observer for the CM Punk Daily. Punk Daily. Here we go.
Yeah, the musical score is fantastic, courtesy of the Rob Observer. Thank you, Rob.
And my vocals. So, what's the latest? What's this? Brian Danielson fired CM Punk? What?
No, not directly.
What?
No, anyway. So shortly before this past Monday's Raw, which of course featured CM Punk's return promo, "I'm home," he says. Brian Danielson tweeted the following, quote, "My dad always told me the right thing is often the hardest thing to do. We won't always make the most money. We won't always be the most popular, but it's still the right thing." According to Fightful Select, that tweet wasn't coincidental or happenstance, as reporting that Danielson was a member of the AEW Disciplinary Commission, which suggested to Tony Khan that he fire CM Punk following the incident at All In. One AEW roster member told Fightful that Danielson was an, quote, appropriate moral compass who exemplifies objectivity. And the same source said that Danielson was the face of and essentially led the group that made the recommendation to dismiss Punk. And according to Fightful's report, Danielson addressed the locker room regarding the commission's decision, stated it was a difficult decision to make. Danielson also spoke of the positives that Punk brought to the company, as well as his friendship with Phil Brooks, but concluded in the end, it was, quote, the decision that had to be made, and stated, and Fightful's report stated that what he tweeted Monday is the message he also relayed to the locker room at that meeting.
What a tough position to be in. I mean, I know back in the day they had this thing, from what we understand, called Wrestler's Court. Seems a little bit different. I don't know if anybody actually got fired due to Wrestler's Court as opposed to just like, silly punishments for
small fines and silly punishments. Yes.
Right. For, faux pas or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting to see the response to this online. We're not there. We don't know what's going on. However, with every single thing I've ever seen and heard from Brian Danielson, really does seem like a stand-up guy. I don't know anybody who's ever said a negative word about him, like, at all.
Here's the thing about Brian Danielson. I remember there was a story, and he's told it, I've heard it repeated several times, that when he initially joined WWE, they have you take these tests that I guess measure personality traits.
Yeah.
And they said that he had the lowest ambition score they'd ever gotten on this particular test. So I don't think... So I've seen some criticism of a roster member being on this disciplinary commission.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to have any wrestler, Brian Danielson's kind of the perfect guy if that test score reflects, because he's not going to let whatever he wants inform seemingly the decision he's going to make.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be I want to make sure I keep my spot situation.
Exactly.
He's Brian Danielson, for God's sakes, So, yeah.
And here, let me get this point across real quick. I understand the world of professional wrestling is different than maybe other sports in that there's a lot of politics in play. People are jockeying for position, on the card. I get that. In theory, I like the idea of having a locker room representative on this disciplinary commission because it informs people who might not be situated in the world of professional wrestling what is generally accepted in the locker room and what is not.
Yeah, absolutely. I 1,000%. Instead of now being like, oh, a bunch of suits, a bunch of lawyers, Bryan Danielson. I'm sorry, but that's as high on the totem
Guilty,
pole.
you know.
Yeah, guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, not having been there, not knowing what was said to who, just hearing reports coming up from over here, come over to there. If Bryan Danielson says this is what should happen, number one, that absolutely cannot be an easy decision to make.
No.
Number two, he's probably right. Like, what, you gonna not trust Bryan Danielson? Get out of here with that.
I know.
So, I mean, it just seems like it was ultimately, I guess, like a poor fit, after a little while.
Yeah.
And now, hopefully Punk will be happier in WWE, and the AEW people will be fine where they are.
Let me ask you a question. With this information in mind, was Punk wearing the white T-shirt a la Bryan Danielson? A shout out, a nod, a reference?
I mean,
to the American Dragon.
That could be possible, but what would he think? Well, also what was kind of curious is, why did Danielson tweet this? Because this was on Monday, the same day as Punk's return.
It was about an hour or so before Raw.
He doesn't strike me as the kind of person who makes sort of dramatic statements on social media like that.
Maybe he tweeted that because it was weighing on his mind. If it's someone that's a friend of his,
yeah,
and he was in a position where he had to make this difficult decision or take part in this difficult decision. I'm sure that weighed on him.
Let me ask you this. Is it possible that, given the amount of attention and my God, the ratings, about 500,000 more people watched this week.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it was aimed at the AEW locker room, who no doubt is going to be privy and exposed to all the hoopla, the press, all the et cetera, of CM Punk's big return to WWE? And who knows at that point what he was going to say? Is AEW basically right now, they're on the bad end of some publicity, of some press,
it could be a situation where Danielson has put that out there to remind the locker room, hey, keep in mind,
this had to be
what's
done.
happening here. The fruits that WWE is reaping of the signing of Phil Brooks short term. But a reminder, what we went through and the difficult decision that was made to let him go.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Which
is incredibly interesting. Again, given that I just never took Danielson as a guy to make sort of, certainly to use Twitter in that way. But
he doesn't tweet a lot.
He does not tweet a lot. Exactly.
No.
And I guess, a man on Twitter, a few words when he does, maybe it's meant to be taken, a bit heavier, more weight behind it. So interesting stuff. Again, it's an interesting thing. Our thumbnail and title says, Danielson behind Punk's fight. Well, yeah, I mean, kind of, but for seemingly good reason,
I mean, Punk's behind Punk's firing. If he hadn't apparently threatened Tony Khan, he would have been fired.
Right. I mean, that seems to be the case. It seems to be based on his actions, he's the one responsible. But, it's different. It's honestly, don't you think it's different? Danielson making the recommendation as a Tony Khan just being like, well, screw you, you're out of here.
Yeah. And even Danielson being a part of the group that makes a recommendation as opposed to 3 lawyers or, a couple lawyers. It's an executive, Again, I think having a voice of someone from the locker room that can speak about how things play out in the locker room and how actions are interpreted by the locker room. I think that's a good voice to have in any sort of decision like this. And I understand the world of pro wrestling where politics involved. You can have someone in there that goes into this thing looking to benefit themselves. I haven't been led to believe that Bryan Danielson is one of those type of guys, though.
Yeah. So let's move on. Oh man, more Punk Daily. Where's the thing? Where's the Punk Daily thing?
We honestly don't have to do it every time.
Here we go. Yeah, we're gonna talk CM Punk. News more now. We just did. But we're not done talking CM Punk news today. We got more.
You should have said no way it would have rhymed.
Hey, you know what? If you want to participate, you can.
I'm not participating. I'm just criticizing. So regarding CM Punk's behavior, this is interesting. Fightful Select that reports that Phil was on his best behavior, at least thus far. WWE has been 2 appearances, and he might have to be at his best behavior.
2 for 2, baby.
2 for 2 contractually. Fightful states that there are some WWE who have been informed by higher ups that Punk may have a behavior clause in his deal, though Fightful was able to officially confirm. That would make sense. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, going back to the Danielson thing, if when Punk came back, we had heard there was signatures on paperwork that had to be signed, that if there might have been something been signed back then when Punk came back to AEW, if you get any physical altercation, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this disciplinary committee was more or less formed to confirm that what happened backstage satisfied the language in this new paperwork the Punk had to sign, and at that point it might have been out of anybody's hands. Like if the paperwork says if Punk did this, it leads to his firing. It's been ascertained by this disciplinary commission he did this, therefore he is fired.
Mr. Brooks, could you please read page 53, paragraph 2, subsection A? Is this your signature on that contract, sir?
If I put a chokehold on Jungle Boy, my contract is terminated. Yes, I can read that.
Guilty.
Yeah,
I would assume there's some sort of morality clause in everybody's contract when they sign with the WWE. But I wonder if this is a bit more involved, a bit more. Maybe they put this one in bold type, and we're like, hey, I have no idea if the subject was ever broached in terms of, well, you're on a performance incentivized based. I think all the WWE stuff is all date based anyway. So if he starts acting a clown and he misses dates or he has to be, taken out, then he probably is not going to get paid anyways. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder how much it differs from like a standard, morality clause. If you do all sorts of stuff, and obviously, if you're on bad behavior outside WWE. I would imagine that would go against some sort of.
Well, I think this is different because I would guess if there's a specific behavior clause in this deal, it's not so much, hey, this is meant to protect us against behavior that we find objectionable outside the company. This is probably like this is here to protect us in case you cause issues backstage.
Yeah.
So I don't. I would imagine there's a standard morality clause in the WWE deal, but if there's like a specific, maybe in bold, maybe in extra large font. Don't stir shit up backstage clause in Punk's deal.
Yeah.
That's specific to this.
Yeah. Mr. Punk, can you take a look at page 64 of your contract, subsection A? Can you read the title there? Don't fuck around backstage clause. Yes, I see it right here, sir. Did you, in fact, fuck around backstage? Yeah, I sure did it.
Guilty.
Less than 2 months into my run here. Guilty. Like, I'm sorry, this LA Knight guy, he was in my personal dressing room. He was napping.
I asked him to leave. He woke up and said, nah. Huh? Nah.
Nap. He went back to sleep.
Oh, my goodness. Anyways, we got a bunch of random Punk stuff. So if you want to do the thing again, go ahead.
I will. But first, I want look, man, this is exciting stuff. All right. You get a reprieve a little bit from the Punk Daily stuff because Larson, you and I, we have a goal. We're on a mission.
Oh, we are.
That mission is the total number of subscribers on our YouTube channel. For anybody who's been around for a long time with us knows that we've had a hell of a time building up our subscriber base on YouTube. And we were stuck at the longest time at like 195,000 subs. We were stuck for the longest time at like 186,000 subs. Well, we seem to have broken through a little bit thanks to the help of Phil Brooks and his various shenanigans during the year 2023.
Especially over the last week.
We have been able to crack through. We busted through 198,230, which we were stuck on for a while. We're all the way up to 198,704, which is less than 200 away from our stated goal of 198,891, which is a palindrome. And that's what we like here at Going In Raw. And so poop, boob, those are great palindromes.
Hoot.
So we have decided that in order to incentivize our friendos who haven't subscribed yet to do so, and maybe the new friendos that are here, like, who are these guys? They look old. They must know what they're talking about. Nah. To hit that subscribe button. We'll do a 12-hour stream spanning both our major platforms here at the YouTube and on the Twitch. We're talking video games. I don't know what else. Maybe a live.
I'm telling you, we got to watch that 10-hour wrestling show, Steve.
Dude, the thing is, YouTube's got those copyright things. I don't know. We can watch
No, we can't show it, but do it like we used to Unsolved Mysteries, where you have the bar on the bottom.
I'm not doing. Unless we can watch it on stream. I'm not doing that. 10
hours.
Let's do that. That sounds horrible. I'd rather.
What about that 21-hour match?
How about 10 hour? Well, that's 21 hours. You wouldn't even do that.
No, I ain't doing that.
12-hour stream. Lots of GTA, maybe some My GM. I don't know.
Let's watch the last 12 hours of that 21-hour match.
Right now we're at 198,704. We're trying to get to 198,891. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button.
Yes, please.
Please.
And say in the comments you want us to watch the 10-hour wrestling show. If there's enough demand for it, will you do it?
No.
That'd be apparently there's enough demand to sign Phil. They did it.
If we were able to show it on screen, I would. If we were able to show it on screen, I would totally consider it. But we're not allowed to do that because of copyright issues. So with that, and then also do us a solid, hit the like button. We're not doing this live. I mean, we were live, but like live in front of a studio audience.
It's not in front of an audience, no,
or a digital studio audience. So I can't yell at people for not hitting that like button. But do us a solid, hit that like button. It'd be really nice. Also, hey, we've got new merch as well at friendoshop.com. That's right. Right now, you can use the discount code Friendo2024 and get a discount. I think it's 20% off. We got a variety of shirts, including, that Judgment Day where it's like little drawy versions of like the Judgment Day. Well, we got one of Steven Larson here. We got a Let Me Tell You shirt, both in a baseball jersey raglan form and like a regular black shirt with white writing. You got Friendo 24/7. It looks like the Austin 316 shirt, but it says Friendo 24/7. We've also got a Friendo Club Chicago shirt. Everybody loves CM Punk these days, so we got a Chicago shirt. And then we got a Friendo Club in the old school SmackDown logo. And then what else do we have here? We got another one here. Oh, yeah, we got like a mug now with the Friendo Club logos on it. Mm-hmm. And then we got like other stuff here. So, check all that out, friendoshop.com. Also, hit join on YouTube. Become a Friendo Club member. Get the Friendo Club set up. Bonus shows, question threads, and access to our huge Big Blue predictions challenges every single month. You can get that by clicking join on YouTube or going to patreon.com/Steve and Larson. $5 and up a month. Regardless if it's the Patreon or the YouTube, it's still $5 for you. And
it's Friendo Club setup.
It's a Friendo Club setup. Everybody can have that, including Seth Rollins.
All right. Pitches are out of the way. What?
Yeah, more Punk Daily. Here we go.
Oh, God.
Yeah, here we go. We're not done with CM Punk news now. No, we're not. We're going to talk more CM Punk news now. Swear this last time.
There's a lot more CM Punk news. I doubt it's going to be the last time. So let's talk about another AEW talent, another member of the Blackpool Combat Club. We're talking Jon Moxley. So he was asked by comicbook.com about Punk's promo following his return on Raw. And this is what Mox had to say if he had seen it. What's his reaction? He says, "You don't know what I think. I did see it. You do not want to know what I think. Ha, ha, ha." Laughs. It says laughs here.
That is the most CM Punk. I'm sorry, that's the most Jon Moxley response I would expect out of him. So that's great. I love Jon Moxley. I think he's awesome.
Yeah. Then according to Sports Illustrated, Punk could soon be feuding with not one, but two of Mox's former Shield stablemates. This is what Sports Illustrated said. Quote, "There are plans for Punk to feud with Roman Reigns," Sports Illustrated has learned, "but it will not be Punk against Reigns first, as that spot belongs to Rollins. A feud between Rollins and Punk is a massive positive for both men. Punk can still wrestle at a high level, but his work will only be enhanced in the ring with a world-class wrestler like Rollins. While it's not the current favorite, there is plenty of reason to believe Punk Rollins could serve as a main event for the opening night of WrestleMania 40. For Rollins, that would simply not be the case without Punk."
While it's not the current favorite, there's plenty of reason to believe Punk Rollins could serve as a main event for Rollins. That would simply not be the case without Punk. He would not main event WrestleMania 40 Night 1.
Rollins wouldn't. No, they was saying
Right.
Rollins wouldn't be the main event in Night 1 without the Punk match.
I would assume that would probably go to Rhea Ripley if they want to do, the women
Rhea
one night.
and Becky, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would think too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this though. Hold on a
yeah.
second. Let me ask you this. Say Seth drops the World Heavyweight Championship to Drew McIntyre.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not for the title.
Mm-hmm.
Would you still put it in the main event of night one?
So here's the deal with that. You'd have to sort of try to gauge how big of a deal he still is in shit. I was going to say 2 months. That's the Rumble. It's 4 months. You know, like at that point, is the honeymoon phase still going? Is he still a big deal? Is the story compelling enough? If he drops the title and they're able to tell that sort of larger than title story, kind of like, you know, Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin. If it's got that level of interest behind it, then yeah, sure, absolutely. If that's the marquee deal, if they're able to keep him hot like that, then sure. My bigger question is honestly, Roman Reigns already? That's kind of interesting. The Heyman stuff would be really interesting to see.
I think that's probably why it'd be intriguing for initially.
Yeah.
You know, if and maybe that would kind of be the crux of the feud, because you'd assume maybe after Mania 40, probably Cody's going to beat Roman for those titles. Sorry, the undisputed Universal title. So obviously in that scenario, Punk's not vying for a championship. Mm-hmm. It's just feuding. He's just feuding with Roman, and you got to think Heyman's going to play a pretty huge role in that.
I would think so too. Yeah, I mean, there's still, like I said, there's still 2 months before the Rumble. There's still 4 months before WrestleMania. So I don't know. I mean, you know, Justin Barrasso, Sports Illustrated, they're pretty reliable. I mean, WWE literally gives them info publicly, you know, to break. And so they like to play nice with WWE. I would be shocked if this was stuff that, you know, WWE didn't want out there. It's just sort of, it's very basic, very general stuff. CM Punk coming back is a big deal. Naturally, yeah, his history with Heyman, you know, I think that's something a lot of people that are excited to see Punk back, especially, would like to see. And on top of that, but I don't know, like, you think this would be post WrestleMania? This wouldn't be like it would Elimination Chamber?
You think it would have to be, yeah?
Yeah, I would
think
think
Rollins
so.
is first and Rollins Punk slated for Mania, then
unless they did, well, that's what I'm saying. Wait, isn't Chamber between Mania and the Rumble?
Yeah.
I mean,
you want to do Rollins Punk at Rumble?
At the Rumble, I don't know. Like you could hot shot, you know, like they did with LA Knight. Like, hey, we've got Punk now. The guy is old. We don't want him to get injured before we can do something like this. Let's just stick him in there with Roman in Perth, which is going to be a big deal. We're going to try to sell that, you know, make that a huge deal. That's a possibility, but like anything beyond WrestleMania 40, it's like, oh, okay, you know, I think, I mean, yeah, I don't know, because we also don't know, like, is Roman going to take time off after 40, assuming he loses the title? Roman's been taking time off and he has the title, so, you know.
Well, it's tribal chief setup, you know.
It's a tribal chief setup. Nobody can get that except for Roman Reigns.
Certainly not.
It's like Friendo Club setup. I mean, it's $5 and you get that in your couch and you can have Friendo Club set up.
All right, let's talk ratings here real quick. Then we got some other news. Punk's return to Raw did huge numbers as expected, averaging 1.884 million viewers, a 0.65. That's a huge number. I think that's the best as Raw after Mania.
Yeah.
And that all important 18 to 49 demo. Punk's promo segment alone, 1.77 million viewers, the 0.66 demo number.
That's crazy.
Even better in the demo, filled it than the show as a whole.
Yeah. Now that we're a couple days out from it, looking at the ratings here, wise move to put him on last.
No, they still should put him on first.
Should put him on first. Yeah.
That way his promo would have been truncated. If they advertise his promo's going to kick off the show, that opening segment might have got over 2 million. It would have
done it. I think the opening segment did get over 2 million. I think.
All right, might have done 2.2 million.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I'd done more than 2 million.
I forgot exactly
Much more.
What Thurston. Yeah, I think Randy's did like 2.098 or something like that.
Yeah,
could be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, you know, hindsight. What they say, it's 2020.
2020.
Yeah. It's 2023. Let's talk about this. So, following QT Marshall's announcement.
You don't want to do the
Wait,
the
oh,
Punk
what?
Daily?
Yeah, dude. Oh man,
Yeah.
what am I even thinking right now? This is
Yeah, what
more
are you
Punk
thinking?
Daily. We're not done talking about Punk Daily yet. There's so much. We're not done talking about CM Punk news.
Your enthusiasm.
For fuck's sake, there's too much.
See? Now you know how I feel. It's too much. It's too much.
I popped myself on that one.
Welcome to
All
my
right.
world.
Let's talk about QT Marshall, because I got to be delicate here. So following QT Marshall's announcement earlier this week that he was leaving AEW, Wrestle Purist offered some more details as to why he might be departing the company. He said why. He basically said AEW, and is, I guess you can call it a bit vague. He
Well,
said
diplomatic, moving in different directions, you know?
Good point. And that's what he said. AEW is moving in a direction, and I want to go in the other direction. So,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Russell Purist might have some info on that. He says, they say, it had been said by sources that QT Marshall was not a fan of some of the shifts in AEW creative and felt the company wasn't telling great stories the way they used to. In his view, putting on a bunch of high-end, high work rate matches with no story or build is being like New Japan Professional Wrestling. There are no imminent plans for AEW to become, quote, like New Japan. This is just how we are told Marshall felt. In the early days of AEW Collision, QT Marshall made some appearances on the show in QTV segments. However, QTV's time on Collision did not last long, and according to people in AEW, CM Punk did not want Marshall to be part of Collision and didn't see QTV as a productive part of Powerhouse Hobbs' presentation. Tony Khan took the blame/fall for the removal of QTV segments, which ultimately damaged Khan's relationship with Marshall. The relationship was fractured, and Marshall felt there was a lack of transparency in terms of the reasons why QTV segments were removed from Collision. He was of the belief that CM Punk removed him from the show and didn't believe Tony Khan when he took the fall. End quote. I can answer that question because QTV segments were fucking awful.
They were really bad.
I don't mean to kick a guy. Look, he didn't get fired. He left.
He left.
And look, I understand that the guy, number one, evidently was an incredibly valued resource behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I know that? Because a lot of people tweeted out, first and foremost, Cody Rhodes. He said that he really likes QT Marshall, so who am I to dump on the guy? Now I'm going to dump on the guy because whenever he was on screen, I wanted to change the channel. QTV was egregiously garbage. It was awful. And CM Punk totally, completely right that he ruined the presentation of Hobbs. Hobbs shouldn't be anywhere near him. No. Those vignettes they did with him where he was doing the Book of Hobbs stuff in his old neighborhood, I thought those were awesome, and they derailed that, and QT Marshall ruined that run for Hobbs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He should have been off Collision. QTV never should have been a thing.
Yep.
So there you
go. I thought you said you're going to be delicate.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be delicate. But then I got to thinking about how, like, man, you have got a talent like Will Hobbs.
I know.
So, no, man, I'm sorry. You're dumb, like Vince McMahon at his worst QTV segments. They were, I'm sorry. They were
awful.
I tried at the time. You and I was like, you know, maybe with the right finagling, maybe they can be. No, man, I'm sorry, but they're not. There is a version of QT Marshall that I halfway appreciate, and that's AAA QT Marshall.
Yeah.
But then when he showed up with the AAA championship and he was, I don't know if he was saying this ironically or like, you know, tongue in cheek, but he was like, you know, the QTV people said their part, and then randomly on QT Island, he was like, I'm a fighting champion with this title, and I'm going to be fighting every week with this thing. I'm like, are you saying that like for realsies, or are you like still a shit heel? But he came off like he was trying to be an actual fighting champion.
And then like 4 weeks later, he lost the title.
Yeah, I don't think AAA wanted that either. I thought he was pretty entertaining in his feud with Penta. There's a small amount of stuff that I saw.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the QTV stuff was bad. Aligning Hobbs with him was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because the crowd, we were there in Sacramento when Hobbs won the TNT title.
Yeah.
And Hobbs is from Northern California. The crowd was fully behind him.
True.
when QT Marshall showed up, there was kind of a collective groan in the crowd.
There was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Honestly, like man, yeah, that was rough because
It was a massive misstep.
Hobbs, it's like, yeah, go out there, get that title off of Wardlow. This is going to be cool. He's going to be seen as a destructive force. And then QT, I'm sorry, but it was just a matter of he wanted this. It looked like, it appeared he wanted the spotlight for himself. And I'm sorry, but that's just, try to be delicate. But, and again, if he was a valued resource behind the scenes,
that's a loss behind the scenes. Yeah,
it is absolutely. And according to, I think it was Fightful, he was pretty well paid for what he was doing there for the behind the scenes stuff. If your dream is I want to be a wrestler on TV, then I feel kind of bad for the guy that he didn't get to. I don't know. What am I saying? He had opportunities. And he just didn't. He wasn't a person anybody wanted to see out there. I mean,
at least not as he was presented. Yeah.
Right. And you're right. But like, if he's the guy who's like pitching the ideas to be, if QTV is his baby, then somebody else needs to be presenting him. Somebody else needs to be crafting his creative then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that stuff was bad, man.
It wasn't good. No, it was bad.
It was bad. And it's like, hey, if the sentiment is we need to get back to telling great stories, yeah, I'm all for that. That's what you and I have been, crowing about.
Yeah.
He ain't that.
And well, here's the thing, too. By saying that AEW is turning into New Japan, as in saying New Japan doesn't tell stories.
That's wrong.
New Japan tells stories.
They do. They tell
stories.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, New Japan doesn't do the weekly, 2-hour, 3-hour long show that,
and then by and large, they don't do the sports entertainment stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Their storytelling is a lot more subtle for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you follow the product, the stories they're telling.
And maybe that's how we should interpret this. Like, maybe it's not, I don't think New Japan tells stories. It's, I think we should tell stories in a way that's different from New Japan, in a way that's much more sports entertainery. Maybe this isn't directly coming from him. It's the sources say that this is what he wanted. Yeah. So who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sorry. Good call by CM Punk taking that QTV stuff off the air. Good call. Mm-hmm. Good call. Because I'll be honest with you. I don't know. You and I have had conversations about this. CM Punk's time on Collision, I appreciated. I liked the spray painting of the world title. I liked the Real World's Champion stuff. Say what you will. We give, FTR Bald plenty of crap because of the podcast stuff. They are phenomenal wrestlers, and I thought they were doing some cool stuff over there. And if you look at the direction they were headed in that short amount of time, there did seem to be a couple more featured women's segments. Mm-hmm. They were elevating certain wrestlers like Hobbs in a way that seemed a bit more genuine to what Will Hobbs really probably should be.
Yeah.
I appreciate what he was trying to do with Collision.
Oh, I do too. And Ricky Starks getting a significant push over there as well. Yeah. There was a lot of talent who were, in some respects, in a lot of respects, kind of spinning their wheels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That upon the birth of Collision, were given an opportunity to really showcase what they could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if CM Punk was the driving force behind that, hats off to him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
And hopefully, you know what, man, I hope, I honestly do. I hope QT Marshall finds what he's looking for. There were times, I do think that QT Marshall I think he's got the camera charisma. I think he has what it takes to be a really good, like, sort of supporting character in pro wrestling somewhere. I liked his stuff in AAA that I saw. If I didn't know about his work in AEW with QTV, if all I saw him was the AAA stuff, I'd be down with that. I'd be okay. Yeah. I like this guy. It's the Sam Adonis type stuff. It's like, I like that kind of stuff. But hopefully he finds what he's looking for. I really hope that of the guy.
Same. Because he's a good wrestler.
He's a good wrestler. Yeah.
He's a good wrestler. He's decent on the mic. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. You want to answer a handful of questions, Steve?
Yeah, I got time for a couple questions. Speed round some.
Yeah, I don't really want to ask this one, but Clown asks, we don't have to answer it. Who won the basketball game yesterday, but we don't have to answer that one.
Oh, no, we can answer it. You won that basketball game. I'm struggling right now, and I'm man enough to admit it, man. I am man enough to admit that.
Justin Reed here asks, if WWE ends up on TBS TNT, do you think Warner will try to encourage crossover stuff between the two companies? Oh, AEW and WWE? No, that's not going to happen. WWE will say no to that.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
That ain't happening.
Metal Pulse says, how far do you think Brody King will go in the tournament? Well, it's not. I think, isn't it just like, how far will he go in the tournament?
Well, I mean, he's not going to advance past the league round. He's not going to advance to the knockout stage.
Right, yeah.
2 and 3.
There you go. There you go.
He'll win 2 matches, lose 3 of them. Because I think everybody, there's 5 matches in the round robin phase, I believe. Alex Foster asks, is Lexus King becoming a late candidate for going in Raw Wrestler of the Year?
Yeah, I'll have to watch some of his stuff from yesterday's NXT. But yeah, I definitely think so. Eastside says, who would you put in a CM Punk lead faction for when he eventually links back up with Heyman? Well, I know AOP is out there. Maybe maybe he could do something with those guys.
Yeah, that'd be neat. Sebastian Garcia says the plan is for Cody to face Roman and Punk to face Rollins at Mania. Who wins the Rumble? Cody.
Cody. Yeah. You don't need the Rumble for Punk Rollins. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I already talked about that. AJ says, will there be any more NXT call-ups before WrestleMania? Maybe at the Rumble.
Yeah, there'll be some NXT talents probably in the Rumble. Probably.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gobaya says, after her sly little smirk on Raw, after her saying that Damien appointed himself leader for Survivor Series when it was her suggestions, what do you think Rhea has up her sleeve in the wake of Priest's failure in the War Games match?
I have no idea. I don't know. I get the feeling that Rhea, Dom, and JD all are going to want, and Balor are going to want Priest to stay, but Priest's insecurities are going to get the best of him.
Yeah, seems like it.
And it might, honestly, he might fail a cash in to tell that story. And then hell, maybe if they really like him, maybe the long-term story is he fails this cash in, wins Money in the Bank next year, and successfully does cash in. Maybe they're taking a really long route with him where he actually gets some redemption for his Money in the Bank failure. That'd be kind of interesting.
That might be interesting. Andre Zimpel asks here, who do you think is the most underappreciated wrestler of all time? Can't really say Christian anymore because I think everybody now fully appreciates what Christian can and has done.
Underappreciated. Maybe Randy Orton. Every wrestler that's wrestled with him say he's the best in the ring. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't get that mark with fans, I think. RedTube says, which would you rather see first? Gunther winning a world title or Keith Lee winning a world title? You see what DC said about Gunther today?
Yeah.
His favorite wrestler maybe of all time.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Right now, I'd rather see Keith Lee win a world title because I feel like right now, Gunther's the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, without a doubt. He's established as a force on WWE programming. Keith Lee should be that on AEW TV. And if him winning the world title would help that case, then yes, I want that to happen. I want Keith Lee to be a main event star. I want him to be a household name. I want him to be the conversation of people saying, he's one of my favorite wrestlers. He's one of the best wrestlers because he's great. And it's shocking to me that now in WWE and AEW, he seemingly hasn't, the creative given to him hasn't been up to his abilities.
Yeah.
And that's through no fault of his own.
Yeah.
You know, it's like for whatever reason, both the WWE and AEW, they have squandered the opportunity to book Keith Lee as a star because he is a star.
Yeah. And
should be booked as a star. And so far, neither company has done it.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'll say Keith Lee because Gunther's already a star. And I don't think he needs right now at this point the world title to be looked at as a star.
My answer is Gunther. Anyways, that's going to do it for the show today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you around.
Goodbye.
We've got no more Punk news. Here, I'm going to do the Punk Daily here. We've got...
Oh, you're jaded too, aren't you?
We've got no more Punk news. We did enough Punk news today to last us a month. or maybe more.